All right, welcome to The Explainer. Look, Succession. For years, it was the show, right? The one everyone was talking about. But what was the secret sauce? What made it so good? Well, today we're going to crack open what the top TV critics are saying. We're going to look at the hidden blueprint that they say makes this show an absolute masterpiece.
I mean, this is the big question, isn't it? Let's be honest, the Roys are just awful people. Truly terrible. So why couldn't we look away? How on earth did a show about a bunch of ridiculously rich people fighting over a company become this? This piece of must-see TV that felt so deeply human? We're going to get into it. So, a group of top TV critics got together to try and answer that exact question. And what we've done is boiled down their big conclusions for you. What they figured out is that the show's genius really comes down to a few key things that are all woven together, and we're about to pull those threads one by one. Okay, so let's start with the foundation. The critics all say the same thing. It all starts with the writing. And we're not just talking about good dialogue. No, this writing is on another level. It's Shakespearean, and it's also like the most awkward, cringy home video you've ever seen, all at the same time.
And that's really the show's signature move, isn't it? It's like a high-wire act. 1 second, your heart is in your throat watching this epic, gut-wrenching family betrayal, and the very next second, you're literally hiding behind your hands, cringing at some painfully awkward moment that feels way too real. The critics say that whiplash you feel, that constant back and forth, that's not a bug, it's the feature. It's the engine that drives the whole thing.
And here's the real kicker, the big insight. The comedy in this show isn't there to make you feel better. It's not comic relief. It's actually a weapon. Think about it. The critics point out that the absolutely funniest moments are almost always the most dramatic and tense. The writers aren't trying to give you a break. They want you to be uncomfortable. They want you to squirm. And because you're so tense, the drama, when it hits 10 times harder.
So you have this incredible writing as the foundation. And what does it support? Well, the pillars of the whole show, the characters. And on this point, the critics were all in agreement. These people, these unforgettable, totally broken people, they're the reason Succession is so much more than just a funny show about business. They make it a story about, well, all of us. Just think about the heirs, right? You've got Kendall, this tragic figure who's just so desperate for his dad's approval, an approval he is never, ever going to get. Then there's Shiv, this savvy political mind who's somehow always getting tripped up by her own family and her own heart. And Roman, wow, Roman is basically a human porcupine, all sharp quills and nasty jokes, hiding this deep, deep well of pain. And this right here is such a crucial point the critics make. The show is not asking you to like these characters. It's not even asking you to feel sorry for them. It's asking you to understand them. The whole point is to see them almost like fascinating lab rats, to see how they've been twisted and broken by this one central toxic force, their father, Logan Roy. And yeah, let's talk about Logan. The critics don't really see him as a person. He's more like a weather system or a black hole. In fact, one critic put it perfectly. From episode 1, Logan Roy is a dead man walking. You know he's going to die. That inevitability hangs over every single scene. It creates this giant vacuum of power and love that just sucks in and warps everybody else. He's the dark sun at the center of their broken little solar system.
Okay, so now we get to what the critics say is the absolute peak of the show's character work. I mean, all the relationships are a mess, right? But there's one duo, one specific pairing that they say perfectly captures the show's entire twisted, brilliant, cynical soul.
So to really get Tom and Greg, you have to hear this wild historical comparison one of the critics brought up. Nero and Sporus. Nero was a Roman emperor, and he took this young boy, Sporus, castrated him, and then married him in this huge public ceremony. It was never about love or partnership. It was a terrifying, grotesque show of absolute power and submission. And that's the lens for Tom and Greg. And if you track their relationship, it's this completely bizarre journey. You know, at first, it's just pure bullying. Tom is just this parasite literally using Greg as a footstool. But then something shifts. Greg starts to learn the rules. He gets smart, he becomes useful, and suddenly they're in this strange symbiotic dance. And it all leads up to this moment the critics call a literal deal with the devil. Tom makes Greg an offer that cements their dark, twisted bond forever.
But here is the most insane, mind-blowing takeaway from the critics. In this entire show, a show that's just dripping with lies and backstabbing and people saying I love you when they mean the exact opposite, that disgusting, twisted offer from Tom to Greg, they argue it was the single most honest moment in the entire series. It was the only time anyone was truly, purely, brutally honest about what they wanted from someone else.
Okay, so let's pull it all together. The writing, the characters, these insane relationships. What does it all add up to? What's the final verdict? Why should we care? According to this panel of critics, the show's real power, its lasting genius, is that it's holding up a very dark, very polished mirror to the world we actually live in.
And the first thing we have to get out of the way is this. The critics were unanimous. The whole who's going to take over the company thing, it was never the point. That was just the shiny object, the MacGuffin, to get you to watch. The real story was always about something way, way deeper. Because this is what it was really about. The critics say the show is a tragedy about being sick in your soul. It's like a 4-season-long autopsy on a family that has everything you could possibly buy but is completely bankrupt when it comes to soul and spirit and emotion. It's about what happens when a life is lived only for power and how that chase just corrodes and hollows you out from the inside.
So, what's the big takeaway? The critics say it's that the Roys are left with a whole lot of money and absolutely nothing else. Nothing that matters. The final, haunting message is pretty simple. Power without a soul is just poison. And the story, it isn't really about the 1%. It's a warning for all of us. A universal tragedy about ambition, family, and the danger of chasing the wrong things.
And that's where the critics leave us, with one last lingering question. If the Roys really are a mirror, showing us the ugliest side of ambition and family and what we call success, what do you see when you look into it? What reflection of our world, or maybe even a tiny piece of ourselves, is staring back? That's the uncomfortable question Succession asks. And that's why we're going to be talking about it for a long, long time.